All right, we'd like to start. Well, it's on. Whether or not it's working is another matter. It's on.
This is the power button here.
No, it's on. Should be working. I think we're waiting for the mic to work. Do you hear it? Nope. All right. I think Hal is, that's a thumbs up. All right. Good. Oh, good. Yeah, we're up. All right. Well, it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce Craig Garriott and Maria. I've served with Craig on various capacities, but mostly on the M&A committee of Presbytery for quite a while, and he continues to serve there and has done a great job of leading the Presbytery in being more missional minded, and as has his wife. And so I just want to welcome them both here. It's our great privilege to have you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, David. It's wonderful to join Mount Airy Presbyterian Church this morning, and I'd like to invite my wife Maria to come up. She's going to help share this moment with me and correct me when I'm off. She's an English major, and I will often make faux pas and other wrong words, so she'll help me with that. Anyhow, it's an honor to be here, and actually Dave and I, yes, we did serve on a missions committee together, and now he gets to work with my brother, I understand, in January, where he'll serve ministry to state, which is a loss for Mount Airy, but it's going to be a gain for the kingdom. So thank you for your generosity in sending him on, and him and Kathy. So, well, when you think about the mission that we're all on, and you think about Jesus' mission and his calling to his disciples, when he commissioned them in Matthew 28, he says, therefore go and make disciples of all the Gentiles. Actually, that's actually what the word is, ethnos, all the nations. When we hear that language, we don't recognize how radical that was to the disciples at the time, who were, Jewish, and he was basically saying, your mission is to go to all of the other nations of the world, all the Gentiles of the world. That's what ethnos. That's where we get ethnicity from, and so he had drawn together a team of. Even though they were all Jewish, they were very diverse in their occupation. So you had, he pulls in a Matthew the tax collector and a Simon the zealot. And these guys would never sit at the table together, but he brings them together. And he had a pretty diverse group of disciples. And so they knew what it meant to be in community with Jesus and to get ready to reach the rest of the world. And of course, then he commissions them in Acts 1:8. You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the outermost ends of the world. And so when you think about the flow of the mission of the kingdom, it's a movement from a monocultural ethnicity of Jerusalem, which they are to reach, and to reach the greater geographical area, which would be a mixed area of Jewish and Gentile. And when he says Samaria, this is like a radical cross-cultural, the Jews hated the Samaritans and vice versa, right? So, but Jesus had a plan to reach the Samaritans through these disciples. And then, of course, the rest of the Roman Empire in the world. So the mission of disciple making that Jesus has called all of us into is a cross-cultural disciple making mission. and it's embedded right in these commissions. One of the things that Paul acknowledged when he was sent forth to make disciples among the Gentiles, he said all that the apostles asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I was eager to do. And so when you think about the movement of the mission of the gospel, it has to be a movement that presents Jesus in his full personhood. Jesus comes powerful in word and deed. And so the gospel is not just words. It is words. It contains words. It contains truth, but it's a truth that works. And so the gospel comes in word and deed. It's a show and tell gospel. It's a declaration and it's a demonstration gospel. And so this is our calling as followers of Jesus, all of us. And this is, so Baltimore Antioch Leadership Movement seeks to live in that calling. So what's our context? I'll let Maria maybe share a little bit.
Okay. Well, this was from like a think tank. I'll just read this. The 2020 census will tell us that we are a more racially diverse nation than at any point in our history. And the fact that racial minorities hold an even bigger presence among our younger generations suggests that diversity will be the calling card of the nation's demography in the 21st century in ways that will have a lasting impact on our economy, politics, and society. So we're already seeing that in our country, right? We're seeing that in the latest census reports. Many of our states are actually already majority minority, meaning that the majority of people in like Florida and California and a few other places, especially if you're looking at the younger generation, don't look like Craig and me. They maybe are Hispanic or African American or Asian background. And then as we look at the church, are we seeing that reflected in our churches?
So this is a circle, a 10-mile radius around the center of Baltimore, and it encompasses the whole Beltway and like a region beyond, a 10-mile radius. And so this is the present demographics. It's 46% white, Anglo, 43% African American, and then Hispanic and Asian. So this is the 10-mile radius. Now, let's think about a 30-mile radius. I did a brief, distance from the Inner Harbor, center of Inner Harbor to Mount Airy. Mount Airy is 33 miles from the Inner Harbor. So this is pretty much where Mount Airy is, 30 miles. So what do you think, just think about, what do you think the demographic circle is going to look like now, 30 miles out? Well, here's what it looks like. Not a lot different. So it's 51% white, 31% African American. It's more Hispanic actually, and then Asian. And so, so there's really only like a 5% difference. But this is the movement of our nation, the movement of the nations coming to our regions. And so it's a huge opportunity for the gospel and for us to actually do what Jesus commissioned us to do in Acts chapter 1:8.
So religious identity in the U.S., the percentage of people who are identifying as Christians or actually attending church regularly has declined precipitously, and that was even before the pandemic. So even since the pandemic, it has declined. So the number of those people who identify themselves as nuns and duns, meaning N-O-N-E, not the Catholic kinds, none. When you ask them what religion, they say, well, none. I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. I'm not part of any organized religion. So the nuns and the duns, meaning I'm done with religion, ex-church, de-churched, those have grown dramatically. They're religiously unaffiliated. And we're seeing that nationally, and we're seeing that locally. As Craig mentioned, even in our presbytery, something like 80% of our churches are declining or plateaued. And the PCA is seeing that as a whole. The average age, what do you think the average age of a PCA member is right now? It's 55. It's 55. So, that's fine, nothing against 55-year-olds, but what's going to happen in 25 years? We're already seeing the graying of the clergy as well. So if you've got a lot of people our age who are moving out of like senior pastor roles, and then where are the people willing to step up into the ministry leadership roles? We have a friend who's on the board of Covenant Seminary, and he told us that this fall, do you know how many male MDiv students enrolled in Covenant Seminary, which is our flagship seminary? How many Masters of Divinity students preparing for the ministry, male students, were there? Two or three. I know, yeah, 2 or 3. When Craig went, eons ago,
80.
it was, yeah. So now there were 5 women and 2 men, 4 or 5 women and 2 or 3 men, he said. So, and that is, now there are other pathways that perhaps are pursuing seminary education, and we're involved with one of them that we would love to tell you more about. But this is a symptom of a bigger issue that we are facing.
This is a report from the clerk of our General Assembly, Dr. Brian Chappell. He was the president of Covenant Theological Seminary for many years. He's the stated clerk. He did this seminar called Understanding Pastoral Generations, and basically highlighting, the call, like with Timothy, to as he was taught by his mother and his grandmother in the faith, how do we make sure that our younger generations are becoming believers in the faith? And so he basically said, in our present culture, there's a loss of truth, which is truth is like relative now. It's what's true to you. But as your pastor just preached to us, there is an absolute truth. But our culture isn't seeing it that way. There is a loss of youth, and so 2/3 right now of youth who grow up and leave the homes, who grow up in the church, 2/3 of those are leaving the church. And some of you who are parents here may know, or parents who have adult children know that personally. It said there's a loss of family consistency. 38 to 50% of marriages break up, and so there's a loss in our families. There's a loss of the mature. This was kind of a surprise in the studies, but there's a loss of denominational ancestry. And what he's referring to is that there's a loss of loyalty to the church or the church that you've been part of. And people they retire, or they move, and there's life transitions, and so they're finding that the older population is even leaving as well. And there is a loss of church attendance, which means that while people are maybe still are tied to the church, they say on average, most people attend 3 out of 8 Sundays. Okay, so there's a significant loss, and so this is the nature of where we are, and these are huge challenges facing the church. So the big question is, okay, what's Jesus doing? Well, Jesus is in the middle of all of this, right? And there was a question from Jeremiah, is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Why then have my people have not been restored to health? And so the reality is Jesus isn't going anywhere. He's in the middle of his mission. He is making disciples. We know this, is that in the majority world, what we would call the two-thirds world, the church is like in revival mode. I mean, there are masses of people becoming Christians. And it's in the West and in the United States that we're seeing a significant decline. But it is a time that is also very ripe for revival. It's a time when people are asking spiritual questions. Because there's been a loss of consistency in understanding the scriptures, there's like people actually are interested in reading the Bible, but they're not interested in coming to our church services. But they'll come to your living rooms, they'll come to your kitchens, they'll have a discussion with you over coffee. And so we have to start thinking missionally in different ways. Well, that's why BALM exists. BALM, Baltimore Antioch Leadership Movement. When you think about Antioch in the Acts 11 and chapter 13, you find this emergence of this city called Antioch, which was a city in Syria. Well, it used to be the Roman capital city of Syria. And it was a very multi-ethnic city. And we find in Acts chapter 13, Paul and Barnabas with a servant who grew up in Herod's court, and Niger. We find a very blended group of leaders, and Antioch was a very multi-ethnic city, and it was a very multi-ethnic church. And we find that the mission center in the New Testament moved from Jerusalem, more of a homogeneous context, to a very multi-ethnic city. And so that's where Antioch comes from. Actually, there was some donor, anonymous donor in the PCA, gave grants to help initiate leadership engines to help encourage missional engagements for our nation. And so we said, okay, we'll adopt Antioch, because we want to live within the framework of that kind of missional enterprise. And what Baltimore Antioch, it's about leadership, development, and equipping to help multiply disciple-making leaders for new and renewed churches who are bringing community transformation. So this is what we're about, the mission to multiply cross-cultural disciple-making leaders for new and renewed community-transforming churches. And our vision is to see gospel saturation in Baltimore and beyond through Christ-centered, reproducing leaders who build communities that display the hope and the healing of Jesus. So this is what we're about. It's about leadership development. And so this is a little history. Maria, I'll share. We're a little older than that now.
Yes, this was us as children. I was 21. Craig was 25. That was just before we got engaged and we got married.
Yeah, we were married. That was the first year.
Okay, all right. So that was our first year we were married. So I was 21 and he was 26. So we were much older. And he looked about 16. So at any rate, we married. He wanted an internship before he finished seminary just to get more practical experience. So he was an intern. He asked Liberty Church could he be an intern there under Mark Pett. And so he came to Liberty to do an internship under Mark. We got married there May 31st. He started his internship about 10 days later. And then he was asked about 3 months later, hey, would you take over leadership of this little church plant that's in Baltimore City that, has started and it's gone through some leadership crises. And so we've got maybe 10 people there, half of whom are struggling with significant mental issues or underemployed. But are you guys interested? And we said, sure, sounds great. So that was us in 1980, 81. So that first summer, in 1981, I gave birth to our first child, but we also had this, partnered with InterVarsity, and Stan Long, who joined us later at Faith in 1990 and is now with us in Balm, is at the far left in the back there. Stan and Terry, his wife, is in the front. InterVarsity led an urban missions project where these students came and moved in with us for, I don't know, a month or something like that, and did some outreach to the neighborhood and some children's ministry. And out of that core, several of these people stayed. The two women in the front stayed with us, and Arlette at the far end there, she is still with us today at Faith. So this was kind of, these were some of our early core leaders. So that's us in 81. And then in 83, God miraculously gave us a building in the neighborhood. An older white Methodist church had, lost so many members that they merged with another church farther up the road, and they sold us their building at an amazing price. So this was God's sovereignty. I actually tell about this in my first book, 1,000 Resurrections, which the title means that because of the resurrection, we experience God's work, his rescue over and over and over. So this was us in 1983, our first elder there. One of our first elders is in the checkered shirt in the front, and then Bill Bowling is in the back far close to me, was our other first elder. So that's us in 83. And then this is us in 2007, having a worship service. Actually, we rented space at Goucher College. At that point, we had 2 services. So for Easter, we all came together, and for a few years, we had rented a space for a joint Easter service. And then here's our values from Micah 6:8, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. So this is some artwork inside the church building, and that really has driven our ministry at Faith. And so we're taking the lessons of, 40 years of urban multi-ethnic ministry and trying to raise up leaders and pass on those lessons before we just die of old age. So, and then here is Faith in 2018 when we left our last Sunday. So, and then the Lord brought. So here is Craig, Pastor Stan, and Faith's new pastor, J.B. Watkins, that the Lord brought.
So God is in the middle of pastoral transitions. He already knows the exact fit, and we were very grateful that the Lord brought J.B. Watkins. He's pastored a church in New Orleans, and the Lord moved him to come to Baltimore. So what is our strategy for Balm? Our strategy is through saturated prayer and theological training, gospel to life coaching, and justice mercy ministry for Baltimore and beyond. When I first drafted some of this material, it did not have saturated prayer. And I will tell you that prayer is the foundation for the health of any mission and the health of any church. And I just, and I'm speaking more out of my own personal failure, relying on the flesh. I've just come to realize, if you look at Acts, Jesus told them to stay in Jerusalem and wait for the Spirit on high, right? They were in that upper room for those 10 days praying, devoted to praying, those 120 disciples. And we find the whole movement of Acts and the movement of God's blessing on the disciple-making movement. You can see prayer as being the key stay point. And even in Antioch, it was as while they were fasting and praying, the Holy Spirit said appoint Paul and Barnabas to go to the Gentiles. So we have these 3 kind of pillars: theological education, mercy, justice, and coaching internships. At the same time that Balm was launched in January of 2019, we were part of the launch team for Metro Baltimore Seminary. So Metro Baltimore Seminary, which was launched out of Chapelgate, was launched with a model of 40% essential theology, 40% practicum training in the field, learning under wise leaders, and 20% gospel to life mentoring and coaching. It's a different kind of model, but it's an accredited seminary that provides a Master of Divinity if you have a bachelor's degree, or a Bachelor of Theology if you don't have a bachelor's degree, for a total price of $6,000, basically $2,000 a year. Where if you go to more traditional residential seminaries, they'll be like $60,000. So this is an opportunity that is provided in our region now that never existed before. And so this is the first group of students with some of the leaders in 2019. We had 27 students that we started off with, January of 2019. And anyhow, in this picture, 16 of these students have stayed with the seminary and are graduating this January. And there are 6 of them who have been part of the tracks that Baum leads. We lead the church planting and renewal track and the urban ministry track. And so this is a group of students and some spouses that have been part of the Baum training mission. These are students that are spending these cohort times every month learning about practical engagements along with as we oversee their internships. And this is the church planting and renewal track. Actually, the young man that is kneeling down, that is Krishna Kandel. Krishna Kandel is from Nepal. He and his wife came to Baltimore in 2017 through one of those immigration lotteries, and they have two children. But Krishna was from the Hindu priestly caste, and he was being trained to be a Hindu priest. And in 2000, he had an encounter with Jesus and gave his life to Christ. He got some training in Nepal, actually became a church planter, and he's planted a church in Nepal that he's still connected with. He wants to plant, there's a lot of Nepalese people in the Loch Raven area of Baltimore, and he wants to plant churches among those people groups. That's just one story. I could go on and on. So that's the church planting renewal track, and then this is the urban ministry track. And actually, this picture was just yesterday. So, we gather with these students and go through a training module. And actually, you can't see the face because what you see is a garden. Do you know whose garden that is? There's two sons in here that know the garden, and that's William Olson. He is a student in the urban ministry track from Mount Airy. And so he's on that call along with, actually on this call. So besides local students, which are mainly part of the seminary, there's a couple in the middle, John and Danielle Snyder. They are on this call from El Salvador. They are missionaries in El Salvador. They've been there serving for 12 years. And they are now part of the Metro Baltimore Seminary Urban Ministry track. So they've been wanting to get theological training. So we've created this opportunity. There's a man on the bottom left side. You can't really hardly see him. His name is Muhammad. And Muhammad was a former Muslim from Liberia. He's presently in New Jersey. He's zooming in. He's getting equipped to go back to Liberia to plant churches. So this is just, there's a story behind each one of these images. But this is the urban ministry track, and of course you saw the other track. And so Baum, in the expansion of the seminary, the first classes were at Chapelgate, and there's still classes that meet at Chapelgate, but there was a desire to make the seminary more accessible for those in the Baltimore area. So Baum connected with Freedom Church, which is in northeast Baltimore, right near the Beltway in 95. And the church, Freedom Church, has designated classroom space just for the seminary. So Baum took the responsibility to renovate those rooms and to outfit them and to put all the technology in and the furnishings. And so this September, 17 new students have enrolled in Metro Baltimore Seminary. We have presently about 57 students, about 60 students in Metro Baltimore Seminary right now, which is pretty amazing. And in our last Presbytery meeting, just this past Tuesday, there were 3 seminary students emerging to come under care and move towards ordination. So it's impacting the regional church. So theological training, the head, that's an important part. And then we have the heart, gospel to life coaching. So one of the things that we do is that we come alongside of churches in renewal. And one of the churches in renewal that we're coming alongside of is Abbott, a Memorial Presbyterian Church in Highlandtown, right in the heart of Baltimore City. The Hispanic population in that neighborhood is 34%. And then it's African American, and then it's Anglo, and it's 1 mile from the inner harbor of Canton. It's a super diverse area of Baltimore, and this mural behind this pastoral team, that's me with Stan, but the 2 present ruling elders that exist is Julius and George Lenning. But so we've come alongside of Abbott to do basically a church leadership renewal. We've been with them for the last 6 months. We'll probably be for at least another 4, as they are working through their own kind of leadership crisis and pastoral transition to seek the new pastor. So we're coming alongside of them, and that's the church building, which is pretty amazing. I mean, it's been there for 140 years. It's had a huge impact on that area, but again, like many congregations, it's been in decline. And so probably on a given Sunday, 40 people maybe in the sanctuary, mainly elderly people. But there are some younger families, and actually we just had a new members class that we launched 3 weeks ago. And we have 3 new members, young people, that are planning to join the church. We basically have the 3 P's of renewal: prayer, partying, and preaching. And so we threw these parties in Abbott Park, and we had 2 of these. Just that is one of the most important things that church can do, is to create space to throw a lot of parties in your homes, small groups, to gather people around food. And this was food and music and stuff for the children. Pastor Stan's been actually helping Grace Relay for the last 2 years, providing interim pastoral assistance, and that's their work. And actually, they're in the process of now issuing and seeking a call for a pastor. By the way, there are 8 churches in our presbytery that are presently in pastoral transition.
22%. It's 22%.
Yeah, it's like 22% of all of our churches. So there's a lot of transition that's going on. But so Baum exists to help encourage churches in transition, church renewal, and to help develop leaders to fill those pulpits. And actually, the seminary is providing students, the training of students to help fill those pulpits during these transitional times. So this is some of the gospel to life coaching, maybe.
Yeah. So these are both Craig and I and Stan coach other ministry leaders, and so the Zoom call is me with Danielle Snyder in El Salvador. To the far my right is Chris and Naomi Six, who planted One Voice Fellowship in Alexandria, Virginia, which I think has 22 languages represented. Pretty amazing. And below them is Craig coaches Thurman Williams, who is church planting in St. Louis and was the former head of, he was our moderator, right?
No, he was the missions chair.
Missions chair of the denomination, sorry. But, and this is the team that we trained in microchurch planting. And then there's a copy of my book, which I just released, Stronger Together, basically taking the lessons of 40 years of urban ministry, putting it in a book with a Bible study. It's available on Amazon or from me in person. But our world is so diverse and so fractured. And yet, how does the gospel speak to this? And only the gospel has the tools for true racial and ethnic unity. And so I break that down in the book. The world is looking for unity, and it kind of tries to squeeze everybody to the lowest common denominator to get that. But the gospel has the tools. I mean, Jesus calls us to go into all the world. We recognize that we're sinners, so that when we if I relate to people in my own cultural ethnic group, I'm going to sin and offend them. So how much more if I cross cultures and make mistakes and whatever. And yet the gospel tells me I am more sinful than I know, but I am more beloved than I know. And that gives us the freedom to move forward in faith with the gospel. So, yeah, that's that.
Actually, so Baum actually sponsored the the Presbyterian's last retreat. It was a couple years ago, and you'll see both pastors and their wives in this picture here. There's Jerry and Marge, and if you look really close on the right, you'll see David and Kathy. So the other part of Baum is the justice, mercy. Jesus comes powerful in word and deed, demonstrating mercy. And so one of the things that we've encouraged is this is called BSA. This is now the Ministry Baltimore Sports Academy. It's a Christ-centered disciple-making outreach to youth in the city in under-resourced communities, and partnering with churches. So that is just emerging, and Kevin Good has been doing this kind of urban ministry, sports focused work for 25 years. And so he's been part of the Baum team. And then we came alongside of New Song in Sandtown, where they did a big landscape and beautification project. So our desire is to come alongside of the church to help facilitate renewal and outreach to the communities, not to do the work, but to come alongside to partner. So that is the ministry of Baum, and this is our staff. Kevin Good, who I just talked about with the Baltimore Sports Academy, Stan Long, and then Marie and I. This is the Baum staff, and that's Baum, Baltimore Antioch Leadership Movement.
You didn't really mention about how... I don't think he really mentioned explicitly how Metro Baltimore Seminary can provide this accessible, affordable, accredited option for students here and reach so many diverse students. And that's because the teachers and even Craig and Stan as deans are not paid by the seminary. So there's, and the teachers are not paid. They get like a little stipend at the end of the term. So that's why Baum has to we raise funds for Stan and Craig's salary so that they can serve MBS. And I think probably 40% of their very busy weeks are spent with MBS, and then the rest in church renewal and coaching.
All right, so we just wanted to open it up for any questions that you might have. Maybe answers that you have too. 17?
That's just an answer.
Okay.
No, we're in Sunday school. Jesus.
Yeah.
He is.
Jesus.
How are you doing raising your funds?
That's a great question. By the way, so he just asked this question because Jerry volunteered to kind of encourage us in our development, and he would coach us. He would actually coach us every week. How are you doing raising your funds? And it's a good question. You need somebody that will goad you, because that's probably not a big strength for us, but we know that we need to do a better job. By God's grace, we've been in existence for 3 years, and we've been paid, mostly. Maybe not fully, but mostly. And so we you know, obviously we've been very busy doing the work of the ministry, and we need to, you know, we need to seek God's partners. And so we're glad to be here with Mount Airy, just to be able to share the vision and to encourage you to explore whether God's leading you to partner with us. So
if individuals want to partner, how do they do that?
Thank you. What a wonderful question. So you can go on our website, and there's links to, you know, click a button and donate. We're actually going to be launching, I'm going to be launching for Baum, a giving day kind of event, or, you know, try to really encourage. It's a big fundraising opportunity for nonprofits at the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, the 30th, I think it is. And we really need to raise a substantial amount of money to finish the year in the black. So I have some newsletters. This is our last newsletter, which if you want to sign up for our mailing list, you can do that on our website. And there's copies of this in the back, and also brochures, but there's a lot on our website that you can sign up. You can find out more about any of the aspects of our ministry, and there's even a special link for Giving Day. So, we're trying to move forward in faith on all those different areas.
I think I only heard half an answer.
Oh, how are we doing? Well, okay, so the need is we have been encouraged by the company Auxilio that does our finances, because we don't want Craig, Stan, or me handling that for sure. So Auxilio handles all our finances, and they advise us some on fundraising. And they recommend that we need to raise, they suggested $60,000 on Giving Day, which is a leap of faith for us. But then, we already have a $10,000 matching grant for that, but we also need to raise $120,000 by the end of the year, which will drive you to your knees. So, yes. So, but that's to end the year strong. It's not that we're in debt and we owe anybody any money, but to be able to fulfill all our obligations. So that's the goal. So that's a big goal for a big God. Yes, Jerry.
I understand that you made a presentation to our missions committee.
to the Missions Committee of Mount Airy, yes. Yeah, we did. And that's why we're here. And we're grateful to be here. So thank you for having us in your house.
So help me in my tiny brain. I'm confused a little bit. But, so BALM, how many? There's 4 staff.
Yeah, 4 staff.
So that's it.
That's it.
That's BALM.
That's it.
Now, so the funds, so you will represent to us BALM. How much of this staff, of your time as a staff, goes to the seminary?
50%.
50% of his time is Stan's.
50%
Just you.
Him and Stan.
and I, 50%. And then 40% to Gospel to Life coaching.
The current pastor of
No. He's doing a part-time assistance there. And that's actually ending in December.
all right. So then 50% of BALM is applied to the seminary.
That is correct.
And then how much goes to the Freedom Church or the Justice Ministry?
Right. So we basically, in terms of our time, right now, our time is about 10%.
To Justice Ministry?
to justice engagements. It's mainly towards, but the thing is that we're, 40% or 50% of our time to the seminary, half of that is the urban ministry track, which is all about developing leaders in mercy justice ministry.
Yeah, and
The difference. Where's the rest of your time go?
I'll just point out that the seminary, because it is so affordable, there are men and women in the seminary who, some of them have been in vocational ministry while they supported themselves in other ways for even a decade or more, and they never had the opportunity to get theological education. So these are people that, they're finally having this opportunity. So that's kind of a mercy justice thing too.
But you asked, where's our time? So 50% of our time is in the seminary, leading the church planting, renewal track, urban ministry track. 40% of our time is in church renewal and coaching. 40%. And then 10% is in urban ministry projects, I would say. Like the new song, we did the renovation for Freedom, at Freedom Church. We've been doing other, urban ministry projects. But if you ask, like Kevin Good, he's 100% in urban ministry. That's what he's doing. He's basically working with under-resourced youth for tutoring, sports leagues. So. And
we all work too hard. Just pray that we would observe godly rhythms.
Where I was headed. You plan as the Lord would lead. I assume. What are your prayer visions for additional staff to BALM to grow, or?
Actually, we will take on interns to train them. There's a young lady who's graduating the urban ministry track that we would like to bring her to provide an internship, leadership development experience. And now Kevin with the Baltimore Sports Leagues, he will be staffing that with not just with volunteers, but with part-time staff. So that area will be growing probably more exponentially than us. The only thing that we're going to be doing probably is creating internships, either for urban ministry or pastoral tracks.
And the church resource, and one last question. So who of these four, who of your staff does that?
Does what?
The church, you said 40% of your time.
Stan and I, and actually Maria, are working in gospel life coaching, church renewal.
So you get contracted by churches to come in and do these.
Yes, some of the income comes from this. That's part of our budget. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Those are great questions. Those are excellent questions.
So usually Craig and I are at Abbott Church every Sunday, and Stan has been at Grace in Relay, and actually our board chair of BALM, Bill Cianella, who's an elder at Columbia, he is now filling the pulpit and doing leadership development at City of Hope in Columbia. So we're actually helping a third church with renewal.
Excellent. Thank you.
Dave?
So I understand that Baltimore, Metro Baltimore Seminary is really part of BALM.
No.
We are in a strategic partnership with the seminary. So, the seminary exists financially with strong partnerships.
Yeah.
And we're probably the strongest partnership because we're providing, we're providing the deans of two of their tracks. But we are, Metro Baltimore Seminary is presently a subsidiary seminary of Metro Atlanta Seminary. It's been doing it for 12 years. But the plan is that Metro Baltimore Seminary will become its own entity, and there's a movement, probably it will happen in the next year or two, that it'll be its own seminary.
If you can't find their website, I found it's easy to type in BALM Baltimore.
Oh.
You just type in BALM, you get all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you need your hand.
The actual, yeah.
But Baltimore gives you their website.
That's interesting.
Or, BaltimoreMovement.org is their official
Yeah.
website. So,
That's hard to remember. I
Yeah.
remember Baltimore.
yeah. All right. Again, it's been a joy to be with you. How do we close this?
I'd love to. Can I?
Yeah.
Let's pray. Father, we do thank and praise you for this ministry. Thank you for raising it in our community in Baltimore. But thank you, Lord, that it reaches out right in here to Mount Airy and beyond, even on the mission field. We thank you for how you're using this ministry, and we pray that you will bless and provide their needs and lead them further in how to serve and how to do ministry wisely with their time and energies and strategically, but all, Lord, to your glory, to bring the gospel to those who are lost and those who are needy, those who are in churches who are struggling, those who need revival. Lord, we ask that you will use this ministry mightily for the glory of your name. And we thank you through Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, brother.
There we go. Thanks so much for having us out.
Yeah.